We have few bad animals. The snake, we know why. We read the story. The raven and the dogs. They are the ones who had intimacy in the Noah's Ark, even though Hashem said not to. There's no time to multiply now. It's limited space. After the flood, multiply and do whatever you want.
While it's not the main topic of this video, I do feel the need to briefly point something out. The story of Noah's flood, as traditionally understood, meaning a global flood that wiped out all of humanity except for one family, is scientifically impossible. When we look at the combined evidence from archaeology, anthropology, geology, and biology, there is simply no support for a global extinction event of that kind occurring within the last 6,000 years. There is no archaeological break that shows a total reset of human civilization. We see continuous cultural development in multiple regions around the world, uninterrupted. Biologically, there's no evidence of a genetic bottleneck severe enough to suggest humanity was reduced to just a single family. And from a geological perspective, there's no indication of a planet-wide flood event occurring in recorded human history. This doesn't necessarily mean the story has no value. It does carry moral, theological, or symbolic meaning. But if we're talking about literal history, then based on the available evidence, a global flood as described in a strict literalist reading of the Bible did not happen. I just wanted to make that clear before moving on, because it's important to admit when some traditional beliefs don't match up with strong scientific evidence. And this happens to be one of those cases where science and religion do conflict. As I've repeatedly emphasized, it's not that science and religion always clash. It's that certain specific religious doctrines sometimes contradict certain scientific findings. The conflict isn't total, but it does exist in particular areas.
And the dogs, usually, they are the reincarnation of the most wicked people, like gays and other things. They're reincarnated in dogs. Also Jews who goes with non-Jewish woman or married to a non-Jewish woman.
There is no basis in core Jewish texts for this claim. Let's be absolutely clear, there is not a single explicit verse in the entire Tanakh, Hebrew Bible, or in the Talmud that mentions reincarnation, let alone reincarnation into animals. That means that the most authoritative and foundational texts of Judaism are completely silent on this idea. Even Maimonides, Rambam, one of the most rational and influential Jewish thinkers of all time, never mentions reincarnation a single time in any of his 13 principles of faith, his Mishneh Torah, or his philosophical masterpiece The Guide for the Perplexed. If Gilgul, reincarnation, were an essential Jewish belief, Maimonides certainly would have included it. He didn't. And it's not just silence. Rabbi Saadia Gaon, a giant of early Jewish philosophy, went even further. He explicitly rejected the belief in reincarnation, especially the idea of souls entering animals, calling it outright stupidity, Book of Beliefs and Opinions, 6-8. Yet, I must say that I have found certain people who call themselves Jews professing the doctrine of metempsychosis, reincarnation, which is designated by them as the theory of transmigration of souls. What they mean thereby is that the spirit of Reuben is transferred to Simon and afterwards to Levi and after that to Judah. Many of them would go so far as to assert that the spirit of a human being might enter into the body of a beast, or that of a beast into the body of a human being, and other such nonsense and stupidities. So here's the problem. Despite the most reliable sources in Judaism never mentioning, or outright rejecting, this idea, this ultra-Orthodox rabbi speaks about reincarnation into animals as if it's a proven, indisputable fact. Not only that, but he confidently claims to know exactly who goes where, claiming that gay people are reincarnated into dogs. This is a staggering level of confidence built on zero scriptural foundation. If neither the Tanakh, the Talmud, Maimonides, and Rav Saadia Gaon explicitly rejected it, so how can any rabbi today claim to know who gets reincarnated into what species? Where is he getting this knowledge from? Certainly not from the core texts of Judaism. The truth is, this claim isn't grounded in Torah. It's grounded in prejudice and gullibility, dressed up as mysticism. And if a teaching can't be found in the most important Jewish texts or the works of the early greatest rabbinic authorities, then it should not be declared as fact, especially when it causes harm and is frankly stupid. Obviously, I am not saying there are no Jewish texts that promote the idea, but they are very late and not built on the foundational Jewish texts. Nor am I saying later ideas are always false, but when they are as absurd as this one, we shouldn't accept it. Now let's talk about priorities. Even if, for the sake of argument, we set aside how false and harmful the claim is, we need to ask a deeper question. Why is this the message being prioritized? Most Jews today don't have a deep understanding of the Tanakh, especially the books of the prophets, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Amos, Hosea, texts filled with moral clarity, justice, and the deep ethical soul of Judaism. These are the very books that challenge us to be better, kinder, more righteous. They are the core of our tradition, and they are neglected. So I have to ask, why waste time pushing a fringe mystical idea, one not found in Torah, Talmud, or Rambam, when so many Jews have never even studied the powerful teachings of Isaiah? Why teach that gay people are reincarnated into dogs, when you could be teaching, learn to do good, seek justice, rescue the oppressed, Isaiah 1:17, and other such important verses from the prophets? How is this teaching about gays helping anyone? How is it spiritually uplifting? What does it add to the soul of a Jew or to the moral clarity of our people or anyone else? Worse, this kind of teaching doesn't just fail to inspire, it embarrasses Judaism in front of the world. It becomes a Hilul Hashem, a desecration of God's name, makes Judaism look hateful, irrational, and frankly, foolish. And for what? A speculative mystical claim with no grounding in our foundational texts? If this teaching had a strong basis in Torah, Talmud, Rambam, maybe we could talk. But it doesn't. And yet, instead of focusing on God's actual wisdom, you go out of your way to teach something that is not in the core sources, harms people, achieves nothing, and drags our tradition through the mud. This isn't righteous. This isn't wise. And it certainly isn't what God wants Judaism to stand for. Now the rabbi is going to share a thoroughly disturbing story.
There was a story here in New Jersey. There used to be a rabbi, his name was Rav Nissim Yagen. He passed about 25 years ago, approximately. And he was in a Sloan Kettering Hospital here in York Avenue in Manhattan. I think he was in his late 60s when he's passed. He was a very, very powerful speaker. He had a lot of influence on me many years ago. It was like a dynamite, like electric in the air when he was speaking in Hebrew. He was speaking in Hebrew. And then he got the disease, and about a few months later he passed. One time when he was healthy, he was coming a lot to America, like 3-4 times a year at least. He had yeshiva in Yerushalayim. Now his name is Yaakov. He took over the yeshiva, and they're building now a building. But when he was alive, he used to come a lot here. And when he was here, the people would call him to speak here, to speak there, in houses, in funerals, in shiva calls, you know. One time they told him there's a house that someone died in a car accident. A 20 or 21 years old boy was driving a car, had a terrible accident, and died. His parents are Israeli, but he's American. He was born in America, and he's in somewhere in New Jersey, near Manhattan, in a nice home. Can you go and speak over there? They sit Shiva. He went to the house. He was speaking very, very strong, usually a lot about people that mechalel Shabbat and all of these things. In the middle of the speech, they hear by the door, nails are scratching the door. Nails. Like noise, loud. So what's this? Nobody knew. Somebody went to open the door. They opened the door. A big black dog, so scary, standing by the door. One screamed, close the door. But the dog already went in. Walks in. Everybody got up, they ran, it's scary. You don't know what he's going to do next. The dog came to the couch, the single couch, sat on the couch like this with a very sad face. He asked them in front of everyone. He used to be a straight shooter. No hypocrisy. None of this politically correct, pretending, acting, speaker. No, everything on the table. He asked them, your son had a non-Jewish girlfriend? Say yes. For a while, yes. This is your son. Right, he was sitting on this couch? Yeah, that's his favorite couch. He was sitting here watching TV. That's your son. That's his punishment. He came back in the body of a dog.
Let me get this straight. A couple lost their child in a tragic car accident. They're grieving, sitting in their home, trying to make sense of the unimaginable. A rabbi visits, presumably to offer comfort, guidance, or just his presence in a time of deep sorrow. Then, out of nowhere, a random dog scratches at the door, walks in, and sits on the same couch the deceased child used to sit on. And the conclusion? The rabbi actually suggests, out loud to the grieving parents, that this dog is the reincarnation of their dead son. I'm sorry, but this is one of the most disturbing and insensitive stories I've ever heard. Let's leave aside the fact that reincarnation into animals is completely unfounded, as I've already shown from earlier sources. Let's assume, just for argument's sake, that someone genuinely believes it. Even then, saying that to grieving parents, unprompted, is not just misguided, it's cruel. This has nothing to do with political correctness, as the rabbi implied. This is about basic human decency, about empathy, and about not compounding a family's pain with bizarre and potentially offensive speculation. Every Jewish source I've seen, every book, every rabbinic lecture, says the same thing. Do not bring up philosophy, theology, divine punishment, or mystical ideas to mourners, unless they explicitly ask for it. The halacha and ethical teachings are clear. You don't introduce explanations or interpretations of suffering to people in mourning. You listen. You support. You respect their pain. To tell someone that their child came back as a dog, especially at their lowest moment, is not spiritual insight. It's emotional negligence. It shows a complete lack of wisdom, a failure to understand human suffering, and a disregard for one of Judaism's core values, not causing needless pain to others. This wasn't comforting, it was grotesque, and it reveals a serious failure in pastoral sensitivity and Torah ethics.
Now you may ask, what's better, to go to hell or to come back as a dog? Some dogs have the life. Go to Great Neck, see in the mansions how they run. They have a personal trainer. They have all kinds of toys. They eat well. You know, LA. The dog lives better than 90% of Americans in America. Doesn't have to worry about the mortgage, or find himself a female in the neighborhood. What's wrong with being a dog? Of course I would rather be a dog than to go to Auschwitz. If you have to come back in life and to be in Auschwitz in a fire chambers, or to come to be a dog, run in the mountains of Beverly Hills, what would you rather? So it's not the worst. It is.
Is it really a good thing to describe the afterlife, specifically hell, as Auschwitz? I personally would never use this terminology. I find it morally questionable to do so.
The worst. Pay attention. The punishment is not to become a dog. Of course, some dogs, this gay designer gave $150 million to his dog. What's his name? Carl something. All his money he left for his dog. He didn't want to give it to his family. They didn't like him. Was gay, you know, very feminine. He gave all his money to the dog. The dog gave more money than all of us combined. With the money that this dog inherit, my yeshiva can run 150 years straight.
First of all, who gives a damn what his name was? Secondly, apparently you didn't merit to receive this money. Maybe if you weren't promoting all these stupid ideas, more people would see the wisdom of Judaism and want to join, support, and promote it. Here's an idea. Start promoting things that are actually true, ethical, that make sense, and are important, and maybe then people will start contributing to your cause. Or maybe not, considering that people are apparently more interested in watching a baseball game than hearing words of wisdom. It's up to us to change this culture.
With this kind of money, we would make another million בעלי תשובה לפחות.
No, you wouldn't. You really think $150 million would be enough to make over 1 million Jews become Orthodox? I find that highly unlikely. Convincing secular people to become religious, especially to adopt a strict or fundamentalist lifestyle, is incredibly difficult. Just look at the Christian world as an example. There are entire organizations dedicated to converting Jews to Christianity. They've been operating for decades, with millions of supporters and substantial funding behind them. Easily tens of millions of dollars have been poured into this effort over the last 50 years. And yet, they've only managed to convert a relatively small number of Jews by comparison, perhaps a few 100,000 at most. The point is, money is only one part of the equation. You can fund endless advertising, outreach, and programs, but changing people's deeply held beliefs and lifestyles is one of the hardest things to do. It takes more than funding. It takes trust, personal transformation, deep study, and often a major life event. Most people don't change their worldview just because someone handed them a pamphlet and a warm meal. So no, throwing money at the problem won't flip millions of secular Jews into Orthodox believers. The reality of human psychology, identity, and belief is far more complex than that. And do you really think that as soon as people hear the arguments you find persuasive, they'll just suddenly change their minds? Newsflash, they won't. For starters, most of the arguments for religious fundamentalism aren't very strong, at least not to the average listener. On top of that, the objections people already have often outweigh whatever evidence you're trying to present. And beyond the arguments, there's the sheer difficulty of adopting the lifestyle. Orthodox Judaism is incredibly demanding, especially for someone coming from the outside. Just take Shabbat as an example, and I'll be showing this in an upcoming video. The rules are extremely detailed and complex. It's a huge ask for someone with no background. That's why I believe we should advocate for a middle ground, a version of Judaism that focuses first and foremost on ethics, values, and wisdom. Let people build a connection to Judaism through its moral teachings and worldview. The ritual observance can come later, if at all. But the foundation should be ethical clarity, not just halachic stringency. I call this approach ethical Judaism, bringing people into the richness of the Jewish tradition by starting with what matters most: how we live, how we treat others, and how we bring meaning into our lives. That's the path that's most likely to resonate and last.
The dog got it. What is the dog doing with 150 million? Investing it in the stock market. He would leave some to his puppies. That's the face of the people. He leaves his money to a dog instead of to orphans, to widows, to sick people.
That's a fair point. Don't put your inheritance into nonsense, and consider putting some of it into a good, useful, and reliable charity.
Stupid people. His best friend was a dog. So he leave his best friend his inheritance. But what is the dog gonna do with that? People are dumber than a show. I hear stories like this. I don't know if to laugh or to cry. So, what is the punishment of being reincarnated in a dog? That they take the most pure thing in the universe, which is a Jewish soul. A part of it is from God Himself.
A part of it is from God Himself? I want to comment on this idea because the terminology is a little strange, though common in modern Jewish literature. When you say the human soul is a part or a piece of God Himself, it sure sounds like you are saying God has parts. That seems a little strange. Rabbi Moshe Ben Chaim wrote, Maimonides discusses the incorporeality of God in his 13 principles, as well in his Mishneh Torah. I will quote the latter, Maimonides' Laws of the Torah Fundamentals 1.7. And since God has no body, nothing can occur to him belonging to the occurrences of bodies, so that he might be divided and separated from another. Maimonides' Laws of the Torah. Fundamentals 1.11. God possesses no joining or division. Maimonides is quite clear. God is not subject to division. Hence, there cannot be a part of God in man. It cannot be spoken of God that he is divisible or any other characteristic belonging to the physical world. Tanya, in this instance, denies the words of the prophets. I think we should stop using this language. Fine to say that the soul is divine or a human has a divine spark, but the word parts is problematic.
And it's eternal, and it doesn't die, and it doesn't have any limitations. not limitations of knowledge or memory or transformation, no limitation. Body is full of limitations, the body. Once the soul comes out of the body, it sees to all four directions. There's no limit to how much the soul can see.
Perhaps the soul doesn't die, but it can be destroyed. That may sound harsh to some, but it's actually a view found in Jewish tradition. While there are many teachings about the afterlife, one clear possibility within the tradition is that the souls of the truly wicked are sent to Gehinnom, hell, for punishment, and then, after a certain point, they are annihilated. They cease to exist. This may sound severe, but it actually makes a great deal of moral sense. If a soul is truly unworthy of entering heaven, yet also doesn't merit eternal conscious torment, which virtually no one does, then annihilation becomes the logical outcome. It reflects both justice and mercy. The wicked are not rewarded, but they are also not subjected to endless torment. They simply cease to be. And this point actually undermines the argument made earlier by the rabbi who claimed that supposedly wicked people, particularly homosexuals, are reincarnated into dogs as punishment. Let's examine that. If these individuals are truly wicked, then their souls should be punished in Gehinnom, possibly subject to keret, spiritual excision, and then annihilated. But reincarnation suggests that the soul still has potential, something left to repair, some spark worth salvaging. Reincarnating into a dog as punishment doesn't even make sense unless you believe the dog has awareness of its previous life, which is absurd. So which is it? You can't have it both ways. Either these people are so wicked that their souls are beyond redemption and should be destroyed, or they are not fully wicked and are instead souls still on a journey, still capable of growth, change, and eventual elevation. I recommend just sticking to the basics. The righteous are rewarded and the wicked are punished in proportion to their crimes. This should be a reminder for us. We must all work on ourselves to ensure we are not counted among the wicked. But let's be honest, that process is rarely as simple as a single moment of repentance or a one-time spiritual awakening. Spiritual growth is messy. It takes time. It involves setbacks, self-examination, and effort. Yes, some people can change quickly, and that's admirable. But for most of us, becoming truly righteous is a long-term process. It requires ongoing work. Through Torah study, the writings of the sages, and especially the Musar tradition, which focuses on character development and ethical refinement. Take this journey seriously. Don't assume you're automatically going to heaven just because you mean well or have a good heart. There is no guaranteed spot. It must be earned through action, effort, and sincerity. May we all have the strength and humility to walk that path and succeed on this lifelong journey toward goodness. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, comment, and join the channel. Thank you.